Welcome, dear students. The current session is about objections to foreign borrowings. I hope and expect by the end of this session, you would be able to understand why were some objections to the foreign borrowings and what were the reasons of that attitude. Well, my dear students, in fact, if you notice the nature of the 18th century concerns towards language, you would realize most of their concerns, most of their fears, they were undue fears, undue concerns. The apprehensions that they had were that English was being ruined by intrusion of foreign words, especially of French words. It's more like, being very much restricted, just trying to live into their own world, not letting, the world around them influence them, which of course is not possible. Therefore observed, an Englishman has his mouth full of borrowed phrases. He's always borrowing other men's language. So, this kind of attitude where, it would be seen as something derogatory, it would be seen as something of not so good a nature that, you would borrow from other languages. In his review in 1708, he says, I think using and introducing foreign terms of art or foreign words into speech while our language labors under no penury or scarcity of words is an intolerable grievance. What he's trying to convey is that he thinks that English language has enough fund of vocabulary. It does not need to borrow words from different parts of the world. Shortly before, Dryden also had expressed the same kind of feelings, and I am quoting here what he said. He said, I cannot approve of their way of refining, who corrupt our English idiom by mixing it too much with French. That is a sophistication of language, not an improvement of it. A turning English into French rather than a refining of English by French. So, this was the attitude towards, borrowings at that time. So, the French borrowings were not being much appreciated by all these conservatives, by all these people, the linguists who thought language was being corrupt by their entry into it. On the other hand, if we look at the position of the French language, we would realize it was enjoying a far, far stronger position as compared to English. Now, naturally, if one language is far stronger in position as compared to the other language, the stronger one is going to, create some impact on the weaker one. This is natural, and this cannot be stopped. French was at the height of its prestige. It had been, the language of the rulers. It had been the language of learning since so long. English was striving, or it had just reached the point in the history where it could start claiming, as being the language of England. So, of course, there was a difference in the prestige factor. French was still being used in almost all the courts in Europe. So, its prestige was, it could not be challenged by English. The knowledge of the language among the upper class in England was quite general when it comes to French. And, it was only that some people would have the knowledge of French as well as of English. And if it comes to one language, then they would have the knowledge of French language, and maybe they would be ignorant of English. On the other hand, the developed communication systems and means of communication, had a strong impact on the French lifestyle. Traveling in France was considered to be a necessary part of the education. And, through traveling, a lot of words from other languages would, of course, be incorporated. On the other hand, the cultural relationship between the people of France and the people of England, these cultural relationships were very, very strong and close. However, if we look at the times and the attitude towards these borrowings and the objections that were being made to these borrowings, actually what we understand is that the danger was not that strong. It was not that acute as it was being presented by, the linguists or the conservative, specialists. The number of French words admitted to the language in the period from 1650 to 1800 was, usually large. The Oxford English University records a fair number, however, that did not win permanent acceptance. They would fade away with the passage of time. However, those were retained. They proved to be very, very useful and are used in our language today. Examples are here on the screen. Boulevard, canteen, cartoon, champagne, cohesion, petrol, publicity, routine, syndicate, and many, many more words like that. Most of these words are that we could, ill afford to lose. They are of so much use because originally English did not have words that would convey these ideas. What I would say to conclude this session is that when we look at this issue, the reality is that time has again done the sifting, and it has clearly done it well. The words that were of, worth, they are retained. Others are removed.